Creamer Media's Mining Weekly is speaking to Andrew Hinkly, the managing partner of AP Ventures, a venture capital fund that is advancing hydrogen technologies and decarbonization. Andrew, please tell us about your Fund 2, which was just closed so successfully. How much does this fund have to invest? And what is the timeline?
We're very pleased with the progress that we've seen with AP Ventures. And as you mentioned, we've just closed our second fund, very creatively named Fund 2, with the admission of our most recent investor, Temasek, from Singapore. That completes Fund 2. We now have just around $320 million of capital committed to Fund 2, which was a fourfold increase over the capital that was committed to Fund 1. So, yeah, absolutely delighted where we have closed the fund, and look forward to deploying the capital now into the hydrogen sector. We've had a long track record in investing in hydrogen at AP Ventures since 2013, when we were inside Anglo American Platinum. As you recall, we span out in 2018 and started deploying further capital across the two funds, Fund 1 and Fund 2. So this is a continuation of an exciting journey for us at AP Ventures.
And are there still a large number of high potential early stage technologies that remain unfunded at this stage?
Well, it's an interesting situation, actually, because, having seen the interest in hydrogen really accelerate in the last couple of years, and comparing that to some of our experiences probably 7-8 years ago now, where it was a lonely place to be, you'd think that perhaps there is more and more opportunity or funds chasing opportunity than there was previously. And that, to a certain extent, is the case. We're seeing new entrants into the marketplace, both in terms of wishing to invest, but also organizations who are spinning out technologies, or teams within, for example, universities looking to establish themselves as independent companies and seeking capital as a result. So, yeah, there is plenty of opportunity, more interest in investing in that opportunity than we have seen for many years. So, at AP Ventures last year, for example, we saw 500 potential investable opportunities, people looking for capital, of which about 150 were specifically within the hydrogen industry, so particular interest to us. And this year, we are seeing a similar run rate, perhaps a slightly higher proportion of the total opportunities we see that are hydrogen related than last year, but very similar. So I think we're on track. And if that's any indication, it probably is, of what's out there globally, because we do see most opportunities being one of the largest hydrogen related investors globally. There's a lot of opportunity, a lot of interest to invest, and a lot of opportunities to invest in.
And Andrew, in what technologies and in what geographies is AP Ventures most active?
Yeah, it's another interesting question. So just looking at the data from the last couple of years, we're probably equally split between the North American region and Europe, slightly more perhaps in the Western Europe than North America, but it's kind of an even split, with about 45% of what we see in terms of opportunities coming from those two regions. And the balance, that 10% balance, is Asia Pacific principally. In the last 12 months, we have invested in that similar proportion, with one investment in Australia and 5 each approximately in Western Europe and North America.
Which geographies are at this stage most advanced from a finance point of view in supporting hydrogen and new technologies?
There's been a long tradition of looking to commercialize hydrogen-based technologies for the decarbonisation of industry and for creating energy resilience in Japan. So Japan has really been pushing the adoption of fuel cell and fuel cell technology for many years. But Europe, similarly, has had a reasonable history and has picked up in the last couple of years its plans across the region for hydrogen. And that's why we see a lot of interesting technologies emerging from Europe. We've had quite a lot of experience in the past with China, and there is a very well-developed and thoughtful roadmap for both producing hydrogen, transporting and distributing hydrogen, and utilizing it, particularly in the mobility sectors within China. And then most recently, probably the market that has really put some energy behind the hydrogen technology plans, and they've always been there, but not quite to the same scale or same determination as you might have anticipated in the past, was the United States. But now I think, driven by the Biden administration, there is significant incremental funding going into the hydrogen sector in the United States. There was always a technology capability that the Department of Energy had maintained and was funding out of the national laboratories in the United States. That has been supplemented now with significant loan programs, tax rebates, and other funding to try and pull through hydrogen technologies and the adoption of hydrogen across the United States. And these are significant programs with large amounts of capital being earmarked for them. The US recently announced what they call Earthshot programs, and the first Earthshot to address major strategic opportunities for the country. The first one was launched by Jennifer Granholm, the Secretary of State for Energy, in the last month, specifically targeted at hydrogen and getting the United States to a position where homegrown technologies are capable of delivering hydrogen at less than $1 per kilo within the next 10 years. So a huge amount of effort now being put in by the United States. But those other countries I mentioned have clear roadmaps, good financial support, and a technical community capable of developing hydrogen and fuel cell related technologies.
And how many countries have specifically included hydrogen in their economic recovery plans?
Gosh, Martin, I wish I had the exact number to hand, but it's probably a couple of dozen, I would say. I mean, it seems that there were many hydrogen and fuel cell related roadmaps by country being developed over the course of the last 24 months or so. And what's happened as the countries have come out of, or coming out of the present challenges of the pandemic, and looking at boosting economic activity, a lot of that funding is being directed towards a green resurgence, a resurgence in the economy through the development of the technologies and markets associated with different green or sustainable technologies, but hydrogen is up there in that consideration set. A very good example is Germany, that's, I think, dedicated at least 9 billion euros to hydrogen as part of its economic recovery. And I believe the French commitment is of that same magnitude towards hydrogen and fuel cells. And I believe, we haven't seen it yet, but I believe next month the UK will release its hydrogen strategy, which will be, I hope, well funded as well, perhaps not quite to the same extent of those other two, but substantial funding is likely to go into the UK. Now, I pick on those three, but remember, as I said, they're three of probably 24 roadmaps that are well funded around the world to support the development of hydrogen.
What demand for platinum group metals is inherent in the unlocking of the hydrogen value chain and in decarbonization?
I believe that the development of the hydrogen industry is the single largest driver of future PGM demand we are likely to see. So it's a huge driver over the next 10, 20 years. I'm very pleased to see that. I think compared to 4 or 5 years ago, there was this concern, this lack of faith in the fact that hydrogen would be a significant part of the energy mix into the future. There's a lot of talk about, the integration of renewable energy will be led by the batteries and battery industry, and it's just about batteries. I think now, if you ask any of the major forecasters around expectations of the energy mix and in the future, and they will talk about hydrogen, and it will vary, but clearly somewhere between 15 and 25% of the energy mix in the 2050 timeframe will be made up of hydrogen and hydrogen-related carrier technologies. And that bodes extremely well for PGMs and PGM-based technologies. So I think the future demand is very positive, and you can anticipate a growth rate similar to that which we see for the technologies in hydrogen. So yeah, very, very positive outlook over the next 10 years. My belief that PGMs driven by the hydrogen. Now, there are specific technologies within the hydrogen industry that are PGM heavy users, and clearly downstream, we talked a lot in the past about fuel cells, and clearly PEM fuel cells are a critical part of that demand. That's important. But upstream as well, in the PEM electrolyzers as well, demand there not only for platinum, but some of the minor metals. But one area that we have been particularly interested in is the midstream. So the storage and distribution of hydrogen in different forms. So hydrogen can be compressed or cryogenically turned into a liquid, and that's existing technology. But where precious metals are going to make a significant impact is in the liquid organic hydrogen carrier technology, and to a certain extent in ammonia technology as well. Both of those fluids, LOHCs and ammonia, are likely to be significant midstream carriers and storage medium for hydrogen, and both have a significant dependency both for the synthesis and cracking of ammonia for the storage and release of hydrogen in the case of LOHC for precious metals. So that area is of particular interest to us. And it's an area where the technology choices are still being formed, and therefore the opportunity for PGMs across the hydrogen value chain will, yes, depend on those upstream and downstream technologies, but we mustn't forget the midstream as well. And I think that is where we'll see a significant difference depending on the choice of technologies that are made for how hydrogen is stored and traded and shipped around the world. So it's a tremendously interesting sector of the hydrogen industry, and one that PGMs are potentially going to do extremely well within.
What presence does AP Ventures have in South Africa, and what is the latest on the Protea Metsi technologies and growing the market for HP now?
The key part of our strategy at AP Ventures is to find technologies around the world which are critical to the development of the hydrogen value chain. So we're looking for technologies wherever they may be developed, be it in, as we were talking earlier, North America, or Europe. And if, having found and invested in those companies, we seek to find opportunities where we can add value by finding deployment opportunities in South Africa. And we've been very fortunate in executing on that strategy with one of our companies that you mentioned, HP Now, in acquiring the distribution license for the technology in South Africa. And we're in the process of doing that, establishing a company, it's called Protea Metsi, to deploy HP Now in the South African market. To do so, we have a small team, now 5 people deployed by AP Ventures. 3 of those are dedicated to this particular technology. And that is now looking for partners, looking for deployment partners, people willing to test the technology. What the technology does is it enables more efficient irrigation. So where there are drip line irrigation systems in place, HP Now provides a solution that removes any of the various blockages that may occur in a drip through a very benign manner. So it uses a very dilute form of hydrogen peroxide to ensure that those irrigation lines remain clear and free and can deliver irrigation specifically to locations where it's needed. So that's essentially what the technology is. We have a team in place to deploy it now. It is a proof point on the overall strategy of how we can enable technology sourced around the world to be effectively and rapidly deployed in South Africa, with the intention of then following through with the localization of the technology and hopefully the opportunity to create both local manufacturing employment opportunities, but also export opportunities as well in the future. So HP Now is a critical first deployment. What we hope for is we'll have several more to follow over the course of the next couple of years.
What is the main overall message that AP Ventures believes should be optimally highlighted at this stage?
I think, Martin, given your presence in South Africa, given our origins within the mining industry within South Africa, I think the message is that South Africa, in particular, the mining industry in South Africa specifically, is extremely well positioned to take advantage of the development of the hydrogen industry over the next 5-10 years. I can't emphasize that enough. I feel that the natural endowment, and I'm talking here about the renewable energy endowment, not the precious metals, although that's an added bonus, but the fact that South Africa is so well positioned to harness renewable energy, to utilize hydrogen to decarbonize its domestic industry, but furthermore, to help other countries decarbonize their industry through the export of low carbon hydrogen. I can't emphasize enough how well positioned I believe South Africa is to seize this moment and really take the opportunity to utilize the resources it has, the natural resources, but also the experience and the capability that is within the existing mining industry. Hydrogen is just another commodity. Just like iron ore, just like the precious metal, just like chrome. And those core competencies that exist within the mining industry within South Africa to develop, to distribute, to trade, to market their existing commodities are equally applicable to hydrogen. So, it's a huge moment of opportunity. And, I look forward to working with our investors. As you know, our original investors were the Anglo American Platinum and the Public Investment Corporation. We've been joined in the last 6 months by Implats as well. So we're very fortunate to be working with organizations that have the capability to develop the hydrogen as a commodity But there are more organizations, more mining companies within South Africa who equally, either with AP Ventures, ideally on their own, to seize the moment, seize this opportunity for South Africa. And that's what I'd like to see.
That was Creamer Media's Mining Weekly, speaking to Andrew Hinkly, the managing partner of AP Ventures, a venture capital fund which is advancing hydrogen technologies and decarbonisation.